There's a simple rule about tax legislation in Congress. Tax increases are very, very difficult to pass, and tax cuts are very, very easy to pass. So what could possibly go wrong for President Trump's giant tax cut?
I think we have the votes. I think that Rand Paul actually is going to vote for the tax cuts. I think that other people, we had tremendous enthusiasm this time. Healthcare, I was told, was tougher, but it was close. I mean, so far, I would say it's not even a contest.
Well, it really shouldn't be a contest. The one thing that I was sure that a Trump presidency was going to be able to get was a giant tax cut that would explode the deficit and dramatically increase the national debt so that the next Democratic president would feel compelled to do the fiscally responsible thing and raise taxes. And then the Republicans would get to campaign against that Democratic president with the promise of tax cuts, because that is the cycle that we have been in since the 1980s. Republican presidents campaigning on tax cuts and then winning the presidency and passing those tax cuts, dramatically increasing the deficit and debt, so that the new Democratic president, Clinton and then Obama, feel they have to raise taxes, and they do. And then Republicans blame them for raising taxes, and the Republicans win the presidency back, and then they cut taxes. So this is the Republican presidency that is supposed to cut the Obama tax rates, which are really just a partial restoration of the Clinton tax rates after the George W. Bush tax cuts. And the Clinton tax rates would be very easy. It should be very, very easy now for Republicans to do this tax cut if any other Republican was in the White House. But with the Republican health care bill, we saw Donald Trump seems determined to say and do whatever it takes to get in the way.
If they can't get this tax bill done this year, should they forego Thanksgiving and Christmas? Should they be here if they don't have a bill on your desk by Thanksgiving?
Well, I think they should, and I think they will. I don't even like them leaving. But I will say this. I want to get it by the end of the year, but I'd be very disappointed if it took that long. It could be substantially less than that.
Oh, no. It cannot be substantially less than that. The Republicans are already fast-tracking this tax cut with a speed we've never seen before in tax legislation. They have had no hearings on any of the tax provisions that the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee will eventually rewrite into the kind of massive tax cuts that the president is hoping for. Here are the legislative stages that the Republicans have to go through. First, pass an identical budget resolution in the House and the Senate. And so far, they have only passed a budget resolution in the Senate. And the House, as usual, doesn't like the Senate's version of the budget resolution very much. And so they might pass a different one, which means that the House and Senate will then have to meet in a conference committee and work out a compromise version that is identical and can be passed in that identical form in both bodies. And if they do all that, when they get all of that done, they will have done absolutely nothing, because a budget resolution is just a promise to do something in the future. It is not a law. It doesn't change anything. It's just a promise, and it's a promise that Congress can break. And it usually takes at least a month just to pass an identical budget resolution through the House and the Senate, sometimes much longer than that. And only then does the real legislating begin. And the real legislating is actually writing the tax bill that will reconcile all those promises that are made in that budget resolution. And that's why the second bill is called a budget reconciliation bill. And that reconciliation bill is procedurally protected, as many people now know, so that it only needs 51 votes to pass in the Senate. And as we've seen before, in the Senate, the Republicans can only afford to lose 2 Republican votes. A third Republican vote lost in the Senate, and the tax bill is gone. There will be no tax bill. And we already have one Republican saying he will not vote for a tax bill that increases the deficit, retiring Senator Bob Corker, who has been sharply critical of the president recently. And Senator John McCain voted against the Bush tax cuts and is also being sharply critical of the president these days. The very worst day in the future of this still unwritten Republican tax bill will be the day that we get the CBO score showing just how much this tax cut increases the deficit. That will be the day that makes or breaks this bill. That's decision day for Bob Corker and maybe for John McCain and possibly other Republican senators. And Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell know that they are not ready for that day yet, not even close to being ready for it. And so while the leadership works with the tax writing staff of the Senate Finance Committee and the House Ways and Means Committee to craft the precise package of tax cuts that can get 51 votes in the Senate, Donald Trump is always going to be making mistakes on the sidelines, and today he made a very big one involving your 401k retirement plans. Austin Goolsbee, economic advisor to President Obama, will join us next and explain it all.
I think that we're going to have the votes for taxes. And I will say the fact that health care is so difficult, I think makes the taxes easier. The Republicans want to get it done.
No, that doesn't make it easier. But Republicans are going to have trouble getting it done because Donald Trump is president and he apparently is going to negotiate the tax bill on Twitter. After some leaks came out indicating that congressional Republicans were considering dramatically lowering the limits that you can contribute to your 401k retirement plans, today the president tweeted this: "There will be no change to your 401k. This has always been a great and popular middle-class tax break that works, and it stays!" exclamation point. And to discuss the problems the Republicans are going to encounter with a president negotiating the tax bill on Twitter, Austin Goolsbee, former chairman of President Obama's Council of Economic Advisors, now a professor of economics at the University of Chicago, joins us. Austin, when I saw that tweet, I thought, okay, so who got what for this? Because as you know, when you're putting together a big tax bill package like this and you're looking at 401ks and there starts to become some pressure to take that provision out, what you want is some senators or some House members to commit to you that they will vote for your package as long as you take out that 401k thing. And so Donald Trump just gives it away on Twitter. And I didn't see any people, any senators or congressmen tweeting back saying, okay, you got my vote now.
No, most of the Republicans were looking at each other like, wait, what did he say?
Yeah.
And that's because, look, the root of his problem on this has always been the same thing, and it's going to continue to be, which is, A, he doesn't know the details, and B, all of the things that he called for, if you simply add them up, the state tax, the corporate tax, all the taxes, they add up to $5 trillion of an increase in the deficit, which they can't pass $5 trillion. Even this budget resolution would forbid that. So they have to find some way to raise revenue. But nobody's prepared to have their taxes go up. And whenever they talk about any way to raise revenue, someone pushes back and the president gives it away without even getting anything in return. So they cannot pass a tax bill if they're going to do this.
Well, one of the easiest ways, and politically easiest ways, it seems to me, for them to try to rebalance this bill in a way that is better for the deficit is to not go so deep on this corporate tax cut that they want to do. Why are they trying to cut that thing so low?
Of course you're
and there's
right.
not one voter out there who's going to thank them for cutting the corporate tax rate.
Well, look, what they are calling for the corporate tax, that's $2 trillion of the $5 trillion. So yes, you're right. But also you'd say, well, why would you cut the estate tax? How many people does that apply to? You got to have $10 million estate before you even qualify to pay a dime. But it doesn't matter. They're charging ahead. Every group has what they want. You add them all up, and it's literally $5.5 trillion. So that's what they just keep going around in a circle. They're like, well, I want this, and I want that, and you want this. Well, that's $6 trillion. How will we pay for that? Well, maybe we'll get rid of the state and local deduction. And then you see the president tweet out, I'm not going to get rid of the state and local deduction. And then you say, well, maybe we'll change 401ks. I'm not going to change 401ks. Border adjustment, I'm not for that. They don't add up. And all of the root of this is because Donald Trump does not know anything about the details of what he's talking about.
And as you know, in every kind of tax reform attempt and tax cutting attempt since the 1980s, the elimination of state and local deductibility has been on the table. Some of the states that have lower state taxes have been trying to get that. It's always blocked by New York, California, Massachusetts, all these states with rather high local taxes. And so when you see them, when I saw them making the move on that, Austin, I thought, wow, they're going to use up a very significant amount of time, and their own Republican New York congressmen are going to kill it.
Exactly. They got more than 50 Republicans who are in the states that would be the hardest hit by that. Who would it hit? It would hit upper middle class people and middle class people in those states. So they are not going to do that. But as you say, it's just going to take them time to figure out that they're not going to do that. They're waiting for a bus to come pick them up, but they're actually hitchhiking without knowing it yet because the bus long ago is gone. They're not going to be able to do that.
We got one giant tax bill through the Senate Finance Committee when I was the chief of staff of the committee, and it takes every single ounce of strength you have.
You know, Lawrence, of all people, you know, there were years. They literally set up that tax bill for years. They were laying the groundwork, negotiating with people on their own side, the other side. They haven't done any homework here. And now they're wondering why they're flunking the exam.
Austin Goolsbee, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it.
Great to see you again.
Coming up, well, Fox News called me a moron on Friday night, but at least Rex Tillerson didn't. I got a few words to say about that next.